Alright, looking at target 3B, solving quadratic equations by taking square roots or completing the square, resulting in imaginary solution. Okay, so for this target, one of the biggest things is knowing which of the two methods we should be using when. Okay, should I be using taking a square root, or should I be using completing the square? Remember, taking square root is when you have two terms, or something like x plus 3 squared. Okay? Completing the square is when you have 3 terms. Okay? So looking at this first one, this is 2 terms. Right? 1, 2. Those are my 2 terms. So the first thing I need to do is subtract this 19 from both sides. So x squared equals negative 19. My next step is take the square root. And the square root of x squared is x. The square root of negative 19 is, remember, square root of 19 times the square root of negative 1. There is a negative in this problem. A lot of us, during the unit, were mixing that up, right, we would just write the square root of negative 1, even if it wasn't negative. Be careful. This one is negative. Okay? So, x equals. So 19 does have, or does not have a square root, right? I get that decimal. So, plus or minus square root 19 is negative 1, okay, always becomes I. Okay? When it's a square root, the I goes in front. So x equals positive or negative square root 19, and then the I goes in front. Positive, negative, I square root 19. Alright, go ahead, turn to the next page. Looking at number 7, x squared plus 4x plus 39. This is one of those that has 3 terms. Right, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to be using completing the square. My first step is still always to subtract, same kind of first step. I have x squared plus 4x plus some number is going to be negative 39. I'm going to draw my box over here to figure out what that number is going to be. X squared is x times x. 4x divided by 2 is positive 2x, positive 2x, plus 2. And then 2 times 2 gives me 3. That's not even a little bit right. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Long guess. So 4 goes here, and 4 goes there. So, this x squared plus 4x plus 4, right, is this, which is also the outside of my box. X plus 2 squared, because there's 2 of them, equals negative 39 plus 4 is negative 35. Okay? So x plus 2 squared equals negative 35. Now this is a problem just like my other problems. Now I just need to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 equals the square root of negative 35. Again, it's the square root of 35 and the square root of negative 1. This one does have a negative sign, so I do need that negative 1. So I get x plus 2 equals, there is no square root of 35, So it's just plus or minus I square root 35. Okay? Still solving for x. Right? I just need to subtract 2 from both sides. X equals -2 plus or minus I square root 35. All right, looking at number 8. X minus 8 squared plus 50 equals -6. So this one is just taking the square root because it has that something squared. Right? If you look, it's kind of like this step in my completing the square. I have to complete the square. That part's already done for me. It's already in the middle of that problem. Okay? So I still need to start that same way. I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides. So I have x minus 8 squared equals -50 minus 50 is -100. Take the square root of both sides. Right? The square root of x minus 8 squared is x minus 8 equals the square root of -100 is the square root of 100 times the square root of -1. Well, what's the square root of 100? It's 10. X minus 8 equals plus or minus. Square root of 100 is just 10. The square root sign is gone. I got an actual number. The only time it stays is if the number stays the same, the square root stays too. If the number doesn't stay the same, the square root has to go. Times the square root of -1 is I. The next thing I have to do, right, solve for x, is add 8. So x equals 8 plus or minus 10i. All right, let's look at number 9. Mrs. Taylor writes the equation 7x squared plus 252 equals 0 on the board. She asks the class how many solutions the equation has and what type they are. Nicole says the equation has 2 real solutions. Maya says the equation has 1 imaginary solution. And Edie says the equation has 2 imaginary solutions. Solve the problem, determine which student had the correct answer. Justify your reason. So I have 7x squared plus 252. I'm going to solve this by taking the square root because it only has 2 terms. 1, 2. You do completing the square when there's 3 terms. So I have to subtract 252 from both sides, just like we've always done. I have 7x squared equals -252. Now, this one's a little different. X squared is not by itself. I need to divide both sides by 7. -252 divided by 7 is -36. Now I can take the square root. Well, the square root of x squared is x. Square root of -36, that's the square root of 36, and the square root of -1. The square root of 36, positive or -6, the square root of -1 is I. So now, I need to know how many solutions and what type they are. Well, this is telling me there are 2 solutions, positive and negative. The I is telling me that they are imaginary. I stands for imaginary. So then who is correct? Evie said there would be two imaginary solutions. Correct. Sorry. Correct. Okay. So Evie said there would be two imaginary solutions, so she is correct. Alright, let's look at number 10. Lila and Trisha are solving the following equation. X to the fourth minus 256 equals 0. Who is correct? How do you know? Well, remember, whatever my exponent is tells me how many solutions. So, Lila said there's one solution. Right? She only has one answer, negative 4i. Well, that's not what this says. Trisha says there's two real solutions, and there's two imaginary solutions. That's a total of 4, which is how many there should be. So, Trisha is correct. Because a fourth degree, so that I can write more clearly. A fourth degree equation should have 4 solutions. That's a good thing to remember. How many, whatever that degree is, that exponent is how many solutions it should have. Alright, that's it for target B. Go ahead, look it over, and then move on to target C.